check it out. This is your boy DGL7. We are live. Now, this is actually a guy I go way back with, and maybe even 4 years ago. Who knows? About that time, it's getting there. My man James Roguski. We have quite a bit of things to catch up on. I have not talked to him for a long time, so you'll be seeing my live in-person reactions to some of the stuff we talk about right here, right now. So, anyways, James Roguski is a very hardworking man. He actually had something called The Complete Guide to Elf. When I first had my website up, there was a direct link to that page, and I'm willing to put that back up. I'll put that link back up as soon as this, the Keith Gadsden event is over. I'm gonna re-put the link up back to his Substack. We go way back, and he also had a lot of stuff that he did with the Tulsi campaign. He was actually doing he did a lot of very solid organizing and putting out materials for other organizers to use, which was incredible for grassroots organizers. Then he actually was working with he did a lot of work in terms of groundbreaking work in terms of fighting the COVID vaccine mandates. He was one of the first guys to talk about the ivermectin and all that before everybody else was. He was doing a lot of pioneering work. I'm just so amazed. And because he was really kind of going down that path, and I was more on the stopping the corruption, the organizing path. And also I knew that if I said anything about the stuff that James was saying, I would be shadow banned flagged. I'm already shadow banned and flagged, but I knew that I would jump off that cliff. So, but yeah, I'm just such a big fan. You did such great works, talking to world leaders and stuff. What have you been up to, James? I want to know.
Well, let me clarify. Let me clarify one thing. It's kind of funny. Hopefully, you'll get the joke, and so will everybody watching. I had been working on the complete guide to health.com, but when you said it real fast, it sounded like you said the complete guide to elf.com. I was like, maybe you should do that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, the complete guide to health. Right. Okay.
It's been a long time, and I've done a lot of things, and the latest stuff, I fell down a rabbit hole a little more than a year ago. I had much of my work forcibly removed from the internet because I must have said something that somebody didn't like, but it was a personal great reset. A lot of work that I had done got wiped out, so a couple of doors close, a new door opens. And for the last year or so, I've been reporting on the WHO, and where I'm headed. Maybe is a place you want to go with me at some point. It's not just good enough to say what we don't want. We have to say what we do want, and that's really where I want to be going off into the future. I'm still doing everything, pointing out all the insanity that the WHO is doing. They set me off yesterday morning. I don't know if you saw what I did yesterday, but they use our money against us. I mean, some of the money that they get comes from the United States government. We gave them over and above what we were obligated to give them last year, an additional voluntarily $750 million. And yesterday morning they put out a propaganda piece that just stuck in my craw. It just got me pissed off, because they know how to tell half truths that I think are, in effect, lies, and they're really good at it. But I'm really good at seeing through it. And so I put up a video yesterday pointing out, quite frankly, it's just bullshit. And they're really good at manipulating information and words, and saying things that are partly true, but because they leave out certain stuff, it's a head game. We're in a war of information. I don't want to steal a line from Alex Jones, but it is an information war.
Okay.
And just trying to put some truth out there. One of the things that you probably haven't seen, if you want to pull it up, I'd love to talk about. It may or may not be what you want to talk about. We didn't really
talk
about what we were
doing.
What's
up. What is this?
Go to this is technically it's an unpublished article. Health Freedom Bill of Rights.com. Don't do a search for it, just go there. Health Freedom Bill of Rights.com. we've been screwed over for the last 3 or 4 years because people in general have given up their own personal bodily autonomy and authority over themselves, thinking that other people have authority over them. And until individual people step back into their own authority and stiffen their spine, there you go. Um, there's a handful of things here. You know me, it's pretty information dense, but I would love to go through this with you, Ed, and just see
Sure.
if there's
Now,
I
just quick question. You said that you had lost some information before. What, like they deleted your old website? Like they crashed your
oh
server
I
out, or what happened?
no I had probably at least 10 websites. I had 6 websites dedicated just to COVID,
Okay.
and my website hosting provider just turned off my account one day. Um, no reason, no reason other than I guess it was time for me to go on a new path. So I just took it, like water off the back of a duck, and
But you still have the files backed up, right?
reinvented. Yeah, I still got all the information, but quite frankly, at this point, it's old news. It's kind of funny. The stuff that was there 2 years ago, people are still now just starting to talk about, and you're like, oh man, it's like I can't even think about that. That's 3 years ago. It's like
Right.
nice that you're joining the bandwagon now, but I'm off scouting the future, what's coming. Um, you know,
Yeah.
it is it is what it is. A couple of doors close, and you open up a new one, and you head off and go into the future. And so,
Do you
yeah,
still have your Substack, or is your Substack canceled? Because I saw it kind of
no,
went to. Okay.
that's what this actually is on Substack, and so that's what pushed me to start posting on Substack. So far, knock wood, Substack's been fine, and you don't take anything for granted. It can all go away in a nanosecond. You got to treasure every moment of every day with everybody you know and love. So
Okay.
here we are. But Ed, I know much honor to you, and I know the feeling is mutual. But I'm looking for abuse, right? I'm looking for constructive criticism. I feel that I do practice the scientific method. Um, I'd love for you to scroll down through this, take a
Sure.
look, and give me every criticism you could imagine. Let me go get something to take notes with. I'll be back in just a second.
Okay. So here we can see, there's a list of rights or freedoms, rights of the individual, right to privacy, and a lot of these rights actually are talking about in the Geneva Convention, about people to have, willing, um, you know, informed consent before medical, procedures are carried out on them. So I do like this overall, the idea of these rights right here. The problem is we have a lot of good ideas, but how do we get people to really support good ideas, or not get distracted by the BS? Which the
Well, here's
yeah,
here's the starting point, and
go
and
ahead.
so I don't try to convince people of stuff. That's a general rule. Um, I try to identify allies,
Okay,
and if somebody looks at this and they go, "Oh, um, I agree with this. 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 Oh, I got a problem with that."
okay,
Okay, fine. Tell me what your opinion is. Okay. At some point, what we have to realize is that if we're completely on an opposite end of the spectrum, and everything someone believes is, the opposite of what I believe, okay, we're opponents. Tell, tell me why you think that.
okay,
I'll shut up and listen. Okay. But what our society has become is you can agree on 99.9% of everything, and you have one disagreement and everybody goes to war. Okay. And so what I'm looking for is this is a means of identifying who people are. You can be whoever you are. I can
okay,
accept you. I can accept you for who you are. what people do with this, some people will sit on the couch and complain. Other people will take this and go, let's go run this all over the world. Love to just get a live, I mean, obviously live stream of consciousness. Let's go through this. And I don't really want to do all the talking. I want you to tell me what you think when you see all these different things come at you.
Okay, so one of the things that comes to mind immediately is the plan looks decent. I see a couple things that might be, I might have questions about. But before I even get into that, the thing is that it's unlikely that this plan would be perfect on its first go around, which I'm glad that you're, with your acknowledgement of, right? So as the plan gets put into place, the way it's implemented may not live up to the ideals that were stated. And the thing is that the people who are affected by those plans, the people who are actually, face the, the negative consequences, have to have a voice in the ongoing, implementation of the plan and the right to review that plan. And that way, we don't have to have a perfect plan
Well,
in just one shot.
let me start from square one. I think what I just heard you say is people need to have a voice, to have input into it. So, all right, my phone number, anybody watching, is 310-619-3055. If you've got a suggestion, a criticism, an idea, a thought, you want to change 2 words because you think they'd be better in a different, give me a phone call, 310-619-3055. I'm not saying nothing's perfect for everybody. That's for darn sure. But I'm looking for feedback. So bring it, let's bring it.
Okay.
I do got to do something at 3:00. So we got plenty of time. That'll probably blow most people's 3:00 my time. So
well, I got a couple of things I'm just gonna.
Sure, go for it.
Since you add holes in it, so the thing is that with the Health Freedom Bill of Rights, the right to travel freely upon the earth, what happens when people are, like they've committed violent actions on other people and they are incarcerated and they're not allowed to travel freely? They could.
Oh no. This is a health freedom bill of rights. I want to live in a world where I'm free to travel and nobody can tell me that I got to poke a hole in my skin.
I like that too, yeah. The other one that I want to get to is the rights of the parents to protect the rights of their children. And this one seems a little bit strange because it seems like parents protecting the rights of the children, but the children have their own rights. I actually ran away from home at the age of 16, and a lot of times, I have I'm much more open to the idea of, I guess you could say child autonomy than other people might be.
If you want to bounce around, because, this is exactly beautiful. You bounce down to number 7 and number 8, which is totally cool, right? Let's do a slow scroll down the page, because this is the quick, meme summary. As you can see right down below, I've got an audio and a video that's coming. But if you scroll down a little bit, we'll get to see.
Okay. Actually, if you want to, I can actually make it so you can share your screen. You can actually run.
This is totally cool.
Okay.
Totally cool. Okay. So if you just stop right there, okay. Health Freedom Bill of Rights. I mean, literally, this is laid out so that it can be nitpicked sentence by sentence. Okay. No restriction of rights and freedoms. A, B, C, D. Right. Yeah. Number 1, rights of the individual. A, B, C, D, so forth and so on. Okay. If you want to bop down to number 7, number 8, and talk about those first, we can bounce around. But the whole idea is, maybe somebody looks at this and they go, oh, I got a problem with number 6G. I don't like number 6G. Okay. Hey, okay, let's talk about that. So go for it, man. I'll let you read it out.
Right. So when people say that you're having a negative impact on my health because of incarceration, but if they're also a harm to other people's health, right, then you could actually make the argument, I guess, right? Has the right to parents defending that. What are the rights of the children? What are children's rights? Do children have the right to refuse?
In regards to health, okay. This doesn't say that parents have the right to restrict the rights of their children. says they have the right to protect their rights. Now,
Okay.
if somebody wants to add to this, it's a hot issue. It's a spicy topic. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but the question is, does government have the right to override the rights of your children?
What
That's
happens
the
if what happens
that's
if the
the
parent
corollary.
what happens if the
That's the
parent wants to vaccinate their child, but the child doesn't want to be vaccinated?
It's a good question.
This is so how is this? How does number 8 really apply in that
That's
case?
well, that's a very good question. Okay, how do you define the rights of the children? You're bringing up a very good issue. So eight um, A needs to be followed by 8B. Um, how do you define the rights of the child? Um, I'll throw this at you a different way. Um, Children in many states have to have several dozen, 60, 70, 80 jabs in order to go to school. Um, just to throw it at people sideways, um, does the janitor and the lunch lady and all of the teachers and the school board and the principal, do they all have to have the same number of jabs that the students got?
Bet you
And
they didn't. I bet you they
okay,
didn't.
okay. So, what's the deal here? But, the rights of the child, that is a difficult topic, but it's an important one. And so talk about their rights being abused. I didn't come into this world to be a pincushion. I don't. I vaguely remember getting what I believe was a polio shot in the arm that leaves a scar on your arm. I don't know if you're old enough to have gotten one of those. Um,
I had the
I,
oral
I
one.
remember, I remember having measles. So if I got a measles vaccine, maybe it didn't work. I don't know. Okay. But I haven't gone for flu shots and shingle shots and COVID shots and all that sort of stuff. Um,
And flu shots, now they're marketing flu shots like crazy because they started turning on that money wheel and they can't turn it off.
right.
So now they're looking for excuses to jab us up. But James, I'm a huge fan of yours, and honestly, looking at this Bill of Rights, I think it's a great idea. And to tell you the truth, I don't know if RFK would endorse something like this. But if not, there's something down here in New York City which they didn't talk about. They talk about People's Party, Libertarian Party,
Mhm.
blah blah blah. Down here in New York State, they had something called Medical Freedom Party, which ran 8 candidates for local government, for state government,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they might actually. I'll approach the leadership and say, look, is this something that you guys could get behind? I know they're
Mhm.
closely associated with the Children's Health Defense. I know you did some work with them.
Mhm.
So you da- I'll try to put you in contact with them, and hopefully we could go
Yeah,
somewhere. Is that something you're looking for?
that would be awesome. That would be awesome. And part of what this is all about when you tie this in um, with, I mean, obviously I've been doing this idea for half my life. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not brandy new. But where this actually really came from was more than a year ago, I had learned that the WHO was listening to proposals for what many people call a pandemic treaty. It's taken on a different form. It's actually going to be a framework convention, which is much scarier. Okay. A treaty is generally you put some words on paper, you agree to it, you sign it, you're done. Okay. A framework convention is essentially you agree to put a group of bureaucrats in charge off into the future and give them authority to work out the protocols later.
No, I do have a
Right.
question about that because I've heard that China, the Chinese government, is now having a big part of control over the World Health Organization. So how can we affect, right? Yeah, the World Health Organization, which is actually very concerning with a lot of things that you're stating. How can we implement? How can we affect their policy?
The if you want to drop off on the Health Freedom Bill of Rights, we can just have you and I chatting, and you could pull up exitthewho.org.
Okay.
Um, the ultimate starting point is understanding um, how did we get into this mess in the first place? And when the WHO was started, 1946, 47, 48, they created a constitution. And I'm going to guess that the vast majority of people have never read the WHO Constitution. So, you know me, I try to do a little bit of organizing. If you scroll down just a bit, I've reached out to groups. You'll see a bunch of flags coming at you. I've spoken to people in Australia and Belgium and Canada and so forth and so on. And so
Excellent.
people around the world are like, no, we're out of here.
I love
Right?
your hustle. You're a hard worker, man.
And so, you know, I don't tell people what to do. They do, you know, upon themselves whatever they decide they want to do. And if I can give them a little bit of support, happy to do so. Obviously, the UK, United States, all right. And so, you know, it's team building. It's working with people who want to work.
China and Russia are not here. Interesting. What, they'd never responded, or what happened?
Well, you know, China's impossible to communicate with. I just haven't had the good fortune of, you know, having somebody reach out to me, as I did earlier in the live stream here. I give my phone number, and if people call me, I don't go chasing, but I'm available. And so if somebody's watching this and they're not in any, you know, if there's some other country, I've had many people call me up and they go, "Oh, how come my country's not on the list?" I'm like, "Well, get to work."
There may be people trying to implement their
Yeah.
own shenanigans. You know, every country has their own interest and their own
Right.
you know agenda, and you know that's not necessarily the people's
Right.
interest. Their own little fiefdoms and BS, man.
So if you
Go ahead.
if you go back up to the top here,
Okay.
this is what's going on worldwide, but somewhere near the top, maybe down just a smidge, should say click. Oh, you know what? I gotta fix it. It doesn't say. Just go to exitthewho.com. I got to put a link there. This is actually the second place that most people go.
Exitthewho.com.
If you just go to plain old exitthewho.com, there's actually legislation in the U.S. Congress, HR 79. When I first started working with this, they had 7 co-sponsors, and not that I did all this work, many people involved, but we're up to 50 total at the moment. And I can summarize this legislation in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Scroll down until you see the number 79.
Okay, I'm just doing fine for 79. Okay.
Yeah, the box right below there.
Right.
That's the whole damn bill.
Nice.
Fits in a tiny little box. There's 3 things, 1, 2, and 3. Tell the WHO we're leaving. We give them notice. Stop giving them money, and repeal the legislation that got us involved in the first place. Arguably, and I think I would win the argument, Congress didn't have the authority to accept the WHO Constitution. That would have taken a constitutional amendment to accept the WHO Constitution. Well, the WHO Constitution puts the WHO in charge of health, and they get to do whatever the hell they want.
There's a lot of precedent in the United States history for, you know, presidents and legislative bodies getting more control when the people just let it happen. People need to challenge these things.
Yep.
Excellent. I like this the challenge there. It's very interesting. And notice that I do have to ask you another thing. Just being so involved, and you know, I look up to you as a fellow activist, hard worker, and it's so hard to get the media to really talk about the narrative's completely controlled. You just had your old stuff, you know, your old websites deleted.
Well, now we're gonna have more fun. We're gonna have more fun.
Go ahead.
Type in up at the top. Go to screwthewho.com, and
Okay.
I'll tell you what that's all about. Screwthewho.com. Okay. I don't give a crap about the media.
Good.
Right? I really, honestly, you know what? Okay, it took a little while. Screwthewho.com. Everybody needs to do what you're doing, what we're doing right now. Everybody needs to be the media. Okay? If you think that anybody in the media...
Sad but true.
Think anybody... Mainstream, legacy, alternative, left, right, whatever. everybody's out for themselves, so you ought to be out for yourself as well. Be the media. If you have some, so if you just do a super quick scroll down
Sure.
here, started this back in September, um, these right under take action, there's two, well, under the green boxes, there's a couple of videos that those are compilations of many, 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 many people's videos. Okay.
Okay.
But if you just keep scrolling down, individual people have gone through the information and they have said whatever it is they wanted to say.
Okay.
And so by being like this person right there, right up above me, um, she didn't necessarily want people to see her face. So she
I
put a little
understand.
twist on it. Some people want to be anonymous, and that's totally fine. I get it. Okay. But the whole point is if you have an opinion, you have the capability. Most people have a phone with a camera or a computer, or somebody who's got one. Um, why are you being quiet? Say what you want to say. Now, I know, Ed, you never speak your mind. I know that. Uh, but Paula did like 3 or 4 videos. And so don't wait for the media to cover something. Okay. Now, if I could get you to go up to the top, we're going to take a little trek here.
Sure.
Just click on my name at the top. No, wait at the top. Sorry.
Okay, you want to go back?
Yeah, go back. Go wait. Just my name way at the top. Wait at the top.
Okay.
Yeah. And click on archive. You just hit no thanks. No thanks there. Hit archive. Okay. And scroll down a handful of things until you see censorship. A little further. We're coming up real quick. Right there, censorship. Okay. One of the articles in what everybody calls a treaty, but it's really a framework convention, did a video on this with David Knight. I think it's kind of entertaining. But if you scroll
Who's
down,
David Knight?
David Knight is guy's got if you look in what this article is, okay, don't go down any further. Go back up. This is in Article 18. You can maybe make that bigger. Click on it. It should blow up.
Sure.
There you go. Okay. This is what the WHO would enshrine if they got their way. They would enshrine this in international law, right?
Yeah.
They want to be able to control what they call mis or disinformation. And so, in my view, anybody who's remotely connected to the media needs to know that this exists, and they need to go, hey, absolutely not. There is no arbiter of what can be deemed as true or false or right or wrong or acceptable, non-acceptable information, misinformation. That's not how freedom of speech works. Okay. And so if you scroll down here, close that up and scroll down.
Sure.
One of the other things that people can be is you can nag people in the media. So scroll down to where it says take action. There are hundreds of media outlets. And my take on this was if anybody wants to take action, okay, go nag any of these people and go, why are you not covering, and whatever it is you think they should be covering. Okay, there's hundreds if not thousands.
Nice
I'm
list
sure
right there.
I'm sure there's
yeah.
there's so many more that are out there, right?
Hey, wait a minute. Am I on this list? Hey, it's all
I'll
good. I'm
put you.
just messing with you. It's all
No,
good.
no, I'll certainly add you to the list. Send me your link. The point is, these people are not covering this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, whomever it is you listen to, wherever you consume your media, okay, go nag them.
Okay.
Go, why aren't you covering, and fill in the blank, whatever it is you feel that they should be covering. pick any topic you can think of.
I liked your solution earlier though, because I do see some of the names here, and
Mhm.
actually I did want to ask you about some of that stuff too. Yeah, that's definitely coming up. But yeah, be your own media. Yeah, you cannot rely on some of these names here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead.
And you know, who is it that you get your info from, and are they serving you well?
Yeah,
Are they now everybody has their area of expertise and their specialty and they focus on this and they focus on that. And I get that that's totally cool. Um, but you got to keep an eye on all of them. They'll all turn into legacy media if you don't pay attention, right? And so if you were to reach out to any one of these people and share information with them, and they come around and they do cover whatever it is you might want for them to cover, that's a force multiplier for you.
okay.
If pick a topic, whatever it might be. You could talk to your friend, you could talk to your cousin or your uncle or your brother or your parents or kids or whatever. Okay, great, you've convinced one person. But if you convince one person on that list and they push it out to their audience, you've just accomplished something powerful,
Okay,
you know? And
sure.
and so we can certainly chase our members of Congress, and we must. That was, exitthewho.com, reach out and send emails and stuff and make phone calls to your Congress people. But you might actually have more impact if you reach out to members of the media who are asleep at the wheel.
Talking about the media, I do want to ask. Just it's been like eating me up, so I definitely want to ask. There are other people who watch, possibly like Yellow Brick Road Discord. They may be wondering as well, if they're watching, if they're still watching. I don't know.
Mhm.
But the whole okay, so let's take a look at I remember that I had this falling out with Jimmy Dore and the whole squad. You might know about it. I think you probably know a
Mhm.
little bit about it at
Yeah.
least.
Why don't you just bring it back so it's just the two of us talking?
Oh,
You can
okay, yeah, no
stop.
problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
stop the share.
no
Yeah.
problem. Yeah. So, all right. So the thing is that you and me, you knew that like because you were around also Larry Alger, which is God bless,
Yep.
rest in
Yep.
peace. That's a great activist, and his work will always be remembered. But by myself, definitely. Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Yep.
So you knew about the falling out. So I think that Convo Couch had actually agreed to cover some of your work, which is nice. I mean, they never agreed to
Mhm.
cover me, so I appreciate at least I'm covering yourself, doing real work out there. Where did they keep doing that, or they kind of like because the thing is that they got picked up by Russian state media, by Russia Times, and once again, right, their connections should have, right. I noticed on your list of all these countries that Russia wasn't there. They do seem to be getting involved in the discussion somewhat, right? China also wants to have its own narrative spin to a certain extent. They're not
Russia
happy.
in
Yeah.
Russia in particular. I mean, I'll give you a little tiny background to that, and then I'll get to your question.
Okay.
Um, it's a soap opera with the WHO. I've watched their meetings. They're having meetings as we speak right now in secret. Um, there have been a handful of meetings. Russia's delegate shows up and they participate, and quite frankly, they're probably one of the better informed, groups, more straightforward. But at the end of a couple of the meetings are just about over. Week-long meetings. The next thing on the docket is to close the meeting, and boom, Sweden and all the other countries, pig pile on Russia about the Ukraine. Okay. And so, Russia should be like this close to leaving the WHO. They've pretty much destroyed the petrodollar with all the sanctions and the, purchasing of oil and gas and all that sort of stuff. Um, it is an absolute soap opera. Um, China at one of the meetings, mainland China, because Taiwan's not allowed in the building, um, essentially argued that most of these negotiations should be done in secret. And Ambassador Pamela Hamamoto from the United States stood up and said, "We agree. Let's keep this all nice and secret." So you've got China and Russia agreeing to take away all of the transparency of what's going on.
Well, they
And,
also have their own reasons too, especially China, to like want to have control of the information that's going out to the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
because
Well,
yeah,
what a lot of people are missing behind all of this, right? Whether it is the negotiate, most people completely unaware that last year, May 27th, our delegates who, purport to represent us, but nobody knows who their delegates are, right? They did adopt amendments to the international health regulations last year. There's an 18-month period that they could be rejected. So we're about 14 months past last May. And so there's about 4 months left to reject the changes that they made last year. And nobody is talking about it. I would be hard pressed. There might be one politician in the world who has spoken out about it, but they're just silent because the process that this operates on was screwed up all the way back in 1948 and 1969 when they adopted these regulations. It doesn't work the way people think it works. You would think, oh, they go negotiate some agreement. That agreement will come back. We'll get to vote on it, or Congress or Parliament, or somebody will have to sign it or something. No, that is not how it works. They decide, and our president has the opportunity for 18 months to reject it. Well, they're the ones who were pushing it. Now, nobody asked the people, nobody had a debate. There was no debate in Congress. There wasn't a discussion about policy or any of that sort of stuff. Totally, secret, silent. Nobody even knows it happened,
yeah.
right? Now, in addition to what they did last year, now they're negotiating 300 plus amendments. Things including a global digital health certification network where you'd have to have a vaccine certificate, a testing certificate, a prophylaxis certificate, a recovery certificate, traveler declaration, health declarations, and passenger locator forms. And, they want to digitize this. And the WHO said, oh, well, 2 months ago, that they're busy operationalizing the stuff that's being negotiated. So, they clearly know where the negotiations are headed. They're not waiting for the negotiations to end next May.
I wonder if
They're
numbers and
build, they're
studies.
building
Yeah,
it up. Yeah, they're
I,
building it out.
I wonder if numbers and studies show how the deliberate right lying, not just to Fauci saying wear a mask, don't wear a mask, but also right the the way that they hid the side effects of the vaccines, right, and the negative impact that that would have, and right the misinformation that was spread by literally the government that was trying to control disinformation, and how much pain and suffering. And I wonder about those numbers. But once again, they're not talking about that, and I think that would be very good data to challenge right this this
Well,
document.
the
Yeah.
the the entire negotiations are not about health. They're not talking to doctors about, oh, if you had done this, you would have saved lives,
Or the
or
affected or the victims, right? Yeah, they only talk to the
that's
managers.
that's not what this is about. This is a venture capital prospectus
Yeah.
to funnel money into the pharmaceutical hospital emergency industrial
Hell
complex.
yeah.
And so what they're talking about is building out a laboratory network so that they have a concept called the One Health approach. And it's predicated on the assumption that all of the infectious diseases come from animals. Okay. And so they want to be able to test everything. They want to test people with the swab up the nose. They want your veterinarian to be testing your pets and so forth. They want to be able to test if you have a chicken coop or you've got some other, animals or the septic. A person I met in, I think it's North Dakota, their child was going to university and they were testing the sewage, the wastewater coming out of individual dormitories. And if they claimed to find something in the poop, they'd lock down the dorm. And it's like, I'm sorry, but you got to push back on that kind of stuff. That is not the world I want to live in, where there's a sewage system monitored, downstream from wherever you live. And if they purport to find something, then everybody's in lockdown.
Once
you know,
again,
I
are the
don't.
school administrators, right, also getting their poop tested? Yo, this is some BS for real, yeah?
Yep.
Um, so, look, you're doing great work out there. I do support it. I will try to get some more local
Yeah, I mean, you know,
resolutions.
the Medical
Yeah.
Freedom Party, you know, it certainly sounds on the surface of that. I'm not intimately familiar with it, but just by the name, um, the only thing I would say to that is, you know, I object to medical, right? It's health freedom, right? And so probably
That's right.
find a lot of common ground there. You know, I know your history. You know, the medical industry is to be avoided like the plague, and you know they are a plague upon humanity. And so, where I'm coming from is anybody who I just don't try to convince people who don't want to learn. Okay. I certainly don't know everything. And if somebody can come up to me and say, "Hey, James, you know, like you know, just in a couple of minutes, you had a couple of good points. I'm going to incorporate that into my thinking. You know, do what I can to incorporate it into the document." That's all good stuff. That's how you learn. That's how the world gets to be a better place. When people are shutting down any debate, discussion, disagreement, and they lead with name calling, you know, it's a wonderful clue. You know, somebody starts out by calling somebody, you know, some other derogatory name. For me, it's a clue that they don't actually have any chance of arguing the facts. So they got to go right into insulting someone's character or their political affiliation or whatever it might be. Um, and anybody who wants to have a discussion over the facts or the policies or the ideas or you know the plan for what it is you want to do, um, oh, call me up anytime at all. 310-619-3055. I don't own every good idea on the planet,
No, I
and I'm
will call
open
you
to.
because honestly, I do. You're someone when you talk about like you have a lot of time in the game. How long you been an
Mhm.
activist and an organizer? A lot,
I mean, really, for this kind of stuff, you know, honestly,
and what you
maybe
do.
maybe 8 years for this kind of stuff. It was more in natural health prior, you know, going back half a lifetime.
But what you
Um,
also just what you do over the years, the
mhm.
amount and the volume of work that you do is just so much greater than usually what other people are doing. That you'll get
Well,
many years worth of experience in 1 year.
I have a couple of secrets. I don't currently, and I never have personally ever owned a television,
Okay.
and I really don't do social media. I mean, yeah, I have some accounts here and there, and I post a thing every now and then. But if you look at what the average person spends watching television and farting around on social media, um, I just put all that time to a different
So
plan of attack.
this is what I
Yeah.
really want to ask you because the thing is that I see you as a if not a mentor, maybe kind of like someone to really whose experience and perspective I really respect and I really so it's very interesting that so for me right like the social media aspect you see me really working hard on trying to
Mhm.
build the social media game aspect of it because I feel like in the past I didn't want the glory. I felt like it was kind of like it was something that I felt like only fakes really like went after that type of stuff. But
Mhm.
then over the years, I saw how they were able to build a brand and how they were able to use that, and the
Mhm.
fact that I did not take that, I saw that as a detriment to myself, and I saw that as a resource that I wasn't able to pull on that they were. So I said, like, why are they trying to take this resource because it has some value. So I do understand also like when you go on social media, you're talking to a lot of casuals, people that cannot be relied on, people that are misinformed,
Mhm.
and you're spending a lot of time circling your wheels. But what's your real take on that strategy, right? Versus using social media? Is that like you don't use social media just as a personal thing, or is it because as the actual organizing activist
Well,
reason for that?
I just don't have time. I don't have the desire. What I do, and it doesn't mean that other people should do what I do. I mean, other people are going to do, you know, you do you, I'll do me. The world will be a better place because we're each, you know, individuals. But I just go and organize information that most other people are ignoring, right? If you see it all over the media, it's a distraction.
And just one more thing
Almost,
I want to say is that James Roguski did a lot of like pioneering work as in terms of digging up the files on MPP, digging up the files on right this World Health Organization stuff. You see him bringing up the actual legislation, injecting it into the site. Very high quality work. Much props to you. Go ahead. I just want to just remind my
and
viewers.
you
Yeah.
know, if it's something in support of a candidate or in support of a cause or an idea, um, number one, and I don't get a lot of grief. I get a lot of friendly advice to the contrary. A lot of people say, "Oh, James, you have to dumb it down. You have to make it simple. You have to, turn it into a meme and emotionalize it and get everybody fired up." And I just personally have more respect for regular people. And I'm like, look, I know this stuff is complicated. I know it's dense. I know it's, more than a lot of people may want. But if you treat people with respect and you treat their level of intelligence with respect, they will rise up. Okay. And so if you go to screwthewho.com, I didn't script those videos for people. They all did it themselves. Okay. And so if you have faith in your fellow men and women, um, some of them will flake out and they'll just sit on the couch and do nothing. And okay, fine. But some of them will rise to the occasion and do spectacular work. If you give them the info that they need to then take it to the next level, okay. Oh, people will astonish you. Uh, but what I don't try to do is control everybody. It's like, oh, you got to do this and you got to say, hey, man, you know, if you're just sitting on the couch and doing nothing, have a nice day. I'll see you later. I'm going to go talk to somebody who wants to work. If you want to sit and complain, free country, go sit and complain. I don't think that's going to get much done. And so I just put my information out, and people who want to do something, identify your allies, work with them, and I mean work with them. Don't try to control them, right? My standard conversation with people is, hi, how are you doing? What can I do for you? Right?
Okay.
What are you doing? If there's any way I can help and learn from what you're doing and help you do what you're doing, um, all of the folks that you saw on exitthewho.org, okay, whether it's Sweden or Australia or Canada, the conversations started with, hi, nice to meet you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How can I help you? Okay. And they went and did whatever the heck it is they're doing.
Okay, so another question is, right, yeah, with your background, you might say, maybe James Roguski lines up to be supporting RFK Jr. He's actually running as a Democrat, I think. Or, actually, I think I talked with you before this call and you said you were more interested in local organizing. Talk a little bit more about your choice as in terms of, right, why you're deciding to focus your efforts on when a lot of people otherwise are sucked into, now, right, I just saw in the Tulsi Facebook group, that they said Tulsi's might be running for president, right? Yeah. So, as in terms of versus backing candidates or backing parties or versus right backing like individual, right?
I've
What's your
I've
thoughts on
I've
that?
I've I've come to an awareness, or I've come to a personal belief, okay, that the problem is us, okay? Us, the people, hoping that a person, a candidate, a president, a congressperson, a
Savior.
whatever, okay, savior, you know, um, we have to fix us. The reason we have trouble with politicians is because we have trouble with us. We're divided, we're apathetic, we're, as a group of people, not you, not me, not a lot of other people, but politicians are supposed to be public servants that work to represent the wishes of the people. And so if we're silent and they're listening to lobbyists and donors and globalists and, experts or whatever, that's because we're not screaming and yelling and ranting and raving about what it is that we demand that they do for us, because they're supposed to work for us, not their donors, and not, and so it's easy to say, oh, my one voice, doesn't matter that much. But if you've ever been in a stadium with 100,000 people, you know that all of the collective one voice, it'll knock your socks off. It'll make a difference. And so I've just decided that my time is better spent not putting my effort into a savior, okay, but trying to get individual people to be better informed and motivated.
Hey,
And
have you heard
whoever
about
the
the
heck is,
yeah?
go ahead.
Have you heard about the Rep My Block program that I'm working on right now?
I'm sorry, rent my
Rep
block?
no
Is
Rep
that what you said?
Rep My Block. Rep My Block.
Oh, I have heard it. I can't say I'm an expert at it.
Okay, let
Do
me gi-
do do tell.
let me give you a quick rundown of it. So the thing is that, along with Theo Chino, right, it's really basically his work. We've actually made open source
Hmm.
software where people can download this and run it on their own server if they want. But we actually took the database for New York State, the voter database, the people that actually vote, and we've collected this over years and made this available for free to the public through. We actually have our own database. So you can just go to Rep My Block, and then you can sign up for a account, and
I
then
think we
yeah.
talked about this like a year ago.
Yeah.
It was working.
We'll make the
Okay.
voter
Yeah, yeah,
database available to you so you can actually impact at the local level. There's different
yeah.
strategies, local, state, and national. And the thing is, at
Yep.
local level, you might say, screw the Democrats, but if you're in California, the Democrats may control the judges, may control also party leadership, and also control local leaders through backdooring them in through a process called special elections. I'm not sure how things work over there. So we're trying to actually. The thing is that the people who are in county committee, right? We're trying to. There's I think 5,000 seats here in Brooklyn alone.
Mhm.
So we're trying to actually create a groundswell of people that are getting more involved because through being on county committee, they'll be more aware of what's going on and they'll meet other
Exactly.
activists and have,
Exactly. And so
yeah.
let me bring this around, completely and totally full circle.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, great. They're negotiating this agreement to amend an existing regulation. They're negotiating what everybody calls a treaty, but it's really a framework convention. All this stuff going on an international level in Geneva, and about 3 weeks or so ago, there was an interview series in Aspen, Colorado. They interviewed three separate uh, secretaries of Health and Human Services. They had Kathleen Sebelius from the Obama administration, they had Alex Azar from Trump, and they had the current Javier Becerra. And they asked him, first question, first thing out of his mouth, I was shocked. He actually spoke the truth. They said, what would you, as Secretary of Health and Human Services, what would you like the people of America to know that maybe they don't really have clarity on? And he said, oh, that's easy. He wanted Americans to know that the Department of Health and Human Services does not have the constitutional authority over healthcare. That's a state issue. And my jaw was hanging open. I'm like, wow, he clearly understands that that's what the situation is. That's good. Then he went on to say, yeah, but we throw a lot of money into Medicare and Medicaid, and so people gravitate to that. So we have a lot of influence. And what I'm trying to get people to comprehend with Health Freedom Bill of Rights, you're falling for power, you're falling for coercion, money, and influence. And that's not the same as authority. And even law is not the same as authority. The authority comes from the people. Before we were born, the states, 13 colonies, decided to give up a limited amount of their state authority to the federal government, but they didn't give up authority over health, didn't even mention it. So the federal government has no authority. They have influence, they have money, they can manipulate your brain. That's what government does. And they can convince you to buy into their program and enter into a contract, and Obamacare or Medicaid or Medicare or whatever, um, and then you're contracting with them. That's a totally different thing than whether or not you have rights and freedoms. and everybody's confused. And so, what I've not, you can't help but miss it. People go to their school board meeting or their city council meeting, but mostly school boards over the last couple of years. And they're like, why are you making children wear masks and get jabs? It doesn't make any sense from a health perspective, from an emotional perspective, from a normal development perspective. Doesn't make any sense. And when they came to be aware that the reason was that if they did that, then they got tons of money from the state or federal government, you go, oh, you lying. Mm, you're not doing it for the reasons you pretend to be doing it. You're not doing it for the health of the children. You're doing it to just get more money. Okay. And once you become aware that they don't have authority and you question that authority and you ask anybody who tries to tell you that they represent the law, well, even if they represent the law, it doesn't mean that that law is within the bounds of the constitutional authority on a federal or state level. And so I'm just trying to get people to understand that they have the ultimate original authority. Certain authorities have been given to the state or federal government, but you got to know where that line
I
is.
think that's an extremely valuable lesson. I really love that dichotomy between law versus authority. That was deep.
And
And yeah,
power and influence and coercion and blackmail and bribery. Okay, you got to ask yourself, are you bumping up to something where your forefathers gave authority to a state government who gave authority to a federal government, and somebody's coming into your life pretending to
yeah.
represent and be enforcing a law that is, appropriately crafted based on that authority, or are they just fronting? Are they just a criminal? Are they just a goon who has power? Maybe they have the power of money, or they have a gun or a taser or whatever, and you're being overpowered. That's a difficult situation. Keep yourself safe by all means. But, from a standpoint of authority, if you know who you are and what your authority and your rights and your freedoms are, it's a lot more difficult for you to be tricked by somebody who's just a bully and is fronting as if they have authority. And
So the things that you're saying,
most people
right?
can't sort it out. Yeah.
The things that you're saying would be at odds with a lot of the cult-like mentalities that kind of exist, at a lot of cult of personality driven, which a lot of politics are because of the way that's set. Where even if that person, right, isn't this, even the people staff around them knows that they're not necessarily that savior figure, they're invested in that savior figure, marketing that savior figure, so they can win and get their jobs and all this other staffing and they're paid to and all this other kind of thing, right? So yeah, like it would seem that despite your hard work, a lot of organizations would be invested not in actually promoting your work and ideas, even
Oh,
though it's good,
absolutely.
but rather actually suppressing it.
Oh, no, 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 absolutely. Absolutely. And so what I have found, and I'm going to guess that you've probably found the same thing.
Oh
Um,
hell
I,
yeah! Oh my,
you know,
yeah. Go
people
ahead.
as a general rule, okay, I interact with people, and there are plenty of people who get stuff done, right? And so if you're interacting with people as opposed to trying to, deal with organizations, in any organization, there are people who make stuff happen. Maybe it's the 80-20 rule, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Um, I just work with people who want to work.
That's cool,
And
man. Me
and
too.
if they want to if they want to argue or they want to get in the way, I just go, well, have a nice day. I'm going to go do something over here. There's an endless list of things to do, and so when you identify the doers, um, there's activists and talktivists. There's a lot of people who talk a good story, right?
Yeah.
Um, when push comes to shove, it's like, well, what have you done? Um, somebody pops up in, I don't know, Finland and has a website where they've borrowed, a bunch of the materials that I've done and they've translated it to Finnish and they put up a website and they've got a petition going and doing interviews. I'm like, awesome.
Hey, so
How
look,
can I help you? What
look,
can I
James,
do?
I'm totally sold on your methodology. I love it. But the thing is that, right? Let's be honest, man. We're losing this war. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is the
Um,
industry and the
let me
fakes, right?
let
Yeah,
me
our
let me
rights are rolling
let me
back.
put
What
it
do we do, man? Go ahead.
let me put it this way. All depends on how you want to define winning and losing. Okay.
Right.
I'm relatively certain that the WHO and the United Nations and the World Economic Forum and all of the above, down to every level that you could imagine, they're going to do pretty much what they're telling everybody they're going to do. They're going to try to get a bunch of money and build out a laboratory network so they can fearmonger us all over again. The latest one. What's the latest one?
Yeah, it's just a string of garbage, man.
Congo
I'm so sick of
Congo
it, man.
hemorrhagic fever.
Yeah, I'm so sick of it. Oh my god. Yeah,
Okay.
just
So
some new
they're
shit,
they're
man.
gonna build their network. They're gonna push their drugs. They're gonna push their jabs. They're gonna try to build the global digital health certification network to track and trace everybody. They're gonna work on putting in a central bank digital currency. They're gonna work on a social credit score and social sustainable development goals and all that sort of
They're
stuff.
learning the technology faster than we are. They're learning the AI. They're learning all of it faster. We are getting our ass whooped out here.
And so I'm building the resistance. And if it ends up being that 99.9% of people fall for the bullshit, so be it. Okay. If it's 99.9 to zero point 0.1, it's going to be a hellscape. It's going to be dystopian. It's going to be Mad Max, 1984, horrible. But where do you got to get? Is it like most people say, 15%, 20%, 25%. Where do you got to be that the resistance is strong enough that it ultimately makes it so that, people are looking at their constrained existence. Some people will have a nice life, they'll get all of the benefits. But if the vast majority of people are under the boot of the system, and they see 20, 25%, 30%, 35% of the population just flipping the bird to the system and going, no, we're not going to do what you say we have to do. At some point, the tide shifts and people look at that and they go, well, how are you getting away with disobeying the rulers?
Okay,
It's
so
like, because
talking about the tides and stuff like that during the 24 election cycle, there's going to be a lot more, attention paid to political stuff. There's going to be a swelling, right, of interest. Do you have any plans to really, somehow, say rising tide floats all boats? Maybe there's a way that you can find a new audience, or I don't know, like, what's your plans,
oh,
man?
I'm the tide. I'm not a boat. I'm trying to raise the tide. Okay. And if somebody comes along and they resonate with what people like you and me are saying, um, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What can we do? And so, but it's not attaching yourself to a personal savior. Okay. It's realizing where the problem is. The problem is the people. Okay.
You're working
And,
with any local? I know you're not big on candidates, but are you working with anybody local?
um, not in terms of candidates running for office.
Okay.
I put my phone number out there and the phone rings all day long, every day from people all over the place. And so the point is, um, if you can light a little fire here and light a little fire there and get it to where it's burning by itself. Good example is the folks in Australia. Um, I think I met with one person in Australia back in December. I had written an article about Australia and done a lot of homework. on that article, I had all of the Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts and phone numbers and emails for every member of parliament in Australia, right? I've sent letters to every member of Congress and every member of um, parliament in Australia and the UK and New Zealand and Canada and so forth. Okay.
Much respect,
So
man.
it's like, you get the data, you go, hey, here's the data, do what you want to do with it. Um, and so it took about a month and a half. It's like, look, I could write an article about Australia, but it'd be a lot better if something was homegrown. Okay. So, I planted a seed, we watered it, we nourished it, and
Amazing.
you go to us. Pull it up right now. I'll give them some props. Go to got to give them a call.
Let's do it. Let's do
Go
it.
to Australia exits the WHO.com.
Okay.
Australia exits the WHO.com. Um, I don't tell them what to do. They're totally capable of kicking butt down in the land down under.
Okay, I will
And
share the
so,
screen. Cool. Bam. There we go. Cool.
okay.
I like
So they've got a
Australians.
newsletter. They've got a couple of senators in there. Um, they have a
Cool.
pretty cool system to help people send emails, resources, videos, all that sort of stuff. Um, and so planting a seed and nourishing it and letting people be whoever they may be. Um,
You know,
if,
50 Cent said something interesting, yeah? He said
mm,
here in the United States, you could get away with a lot of fake stuff, like Jay-Z, pumped up his volume numbers by using the money, right, to buy his own album and stuff like that because it's a smaller market. But
mhm,
worldwide, you can see, and this is true for a lot of music, right? A lot of music doesn't get appreciated at home, it gets appreciated
mhm.
overseas due to commercial manipulation. So it's very interesting that you've been able to make progress overseas more than, you know, that's it's an interesting take. I'm thinking interesting, yeah. I've actually been doing less international work because I feel like there's so little that I could trust from overseas. But I like the way that you're going. I'm actually a little bit concerned about like seeing China and Russia involved with some things, but you're actually on another route to Australia. That's cool. I mean, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean,
So
very much. I don't know how much time you have. I'll talk as long as you need. Um, but I put something else in the chat because you
okay,
said something, and I'd love to share this with everybody. Hopefully, you can put this in your description or whatever on the video. Share this around. Um,
sure.
there is so much talent out there.
Oh,
There are
cool.
so many people doing art and music and comedy and writing and just everything. Yeah, if you want to share that,
Yeah,
when I when I need to get cranked up, when I need to get energized, just play any of this music, and
cool. I just shared it on the screen. My
yeah,
audience was
sure,
able to see it. Yeah. So I saw
yeah.
it. Yeah, the pillage people. That was funny. Yeah. Okay.
It's fun to play with your mRNA,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but if you go back to where you don't have to go back, but just mentally, if you go back to health, freedom, you know what? Actually, we probably should
Let's go
because
back. Yeah, I'll go
it'll
back
give
to the
it
screen
it'll
right
give
now.
it context. Go back to health, freedom, Bill of Rights. Um,
Okay. So this was the music page, and I'll go back to the health, build, and freedom rights. It's this one over here.
there you go. If you scroll down just a little tiny bit, um, the purpose of this, that's far enough, okay,
Okay.
is in Collier County in Florida, they adopted something very similar to this, not particularly this, but something very similar to it
Oh, great.
as a county resolution, and they put it into law as a county ordinance. And
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
okay,
That's a great
so
idea. Exactly.
so where
Yeah.
I'm coming from, and we didn't talk about it when we were blowing through these details at the beginning. Um, yeah, I'm talking to people about what's going on with the World Health Organization, but the reality of it is all of the stuff that they're doing manifests locally. You're not going to deal with somebody from Geneva. You're going to deal with somebody, across the street from you or where you shop or where you work or, whatever in your local area. And so the idea with this is on a city or a county basis for people to come together and agree that they will respect each other's health freedom rights, the Health Freedom Bill of Rights, and work to get their city or their county or, I don't know, your development or wherever you want to start, um, to just say, look, these are the rights that we agree that we all have, and we have to honor them.
And I'm going to
Um,
shout out Larry Alger right now for his work as
mhm,
in terms of election integrity. And the thing
mhm,
is that right now I'm going to bring that up because there's a group that I'm working with right now called Audit New York. And the
mhm,
thing is that they're already approaching right local township entities to talk to them about auditing the election results because they found some type of manipulation going on.
yep,
In that context, these people are also just knowing that crew. They are sympathetic to ideals such as these, right? Many of them,
mhm,
and they
mhm,
might be able to also institute a. They have already instituted a request, right, for the election review. They could also put one for this Bill of Rights on their township.
yep.
At local level, this is
No,
achievable, and it's great.
anybody
Yeah.
wants to, anybody wants to download this model resolution and change it however the heck they want to change it. It's a free country,
So I want to, yeah.
take it and run with it, make it better, send me some suggestions,
So I want to shout out Convo Couch now. Me and Convo Couch have had crossed ways. We're not really cool no more, but y'all. I'm not saying that everything y'all do is bad, right? Yeah, y'all could use your election integrity strength and use that as a way to really, activate the community. And also, I know you're also working somewhat on this issue as well. I know, and I hope that y'all could
and
be
so,
allies. We'll see.
ultimately, um, I think it was Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill, decades ago, all politics is local, right? So whatever's going on in Geneva, in the WHO, in Washington, D.C., in Sacramento, in Albany, or wherever it
Yeah,
may
it's
be,
happening in someone's neighborhood.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's happening right across the street from them. And so um, the idea is, seriously, you're going to accept that someone else in Geneva or DC or state capital can tell you that you have to poke a hole in your body? You seriously think that's
You
okay?
should get up with Lisa and try to make this pass in L.A. You know what I mean? That would be hot.
Actually, Lisa and I just bumped into each other
What? Awesome.
watching a movie.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. So uh,
What movie?
oh, Sounds of Freedom.
Oh,
Interesting.
that's hilarious.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god, it's hilarious. I have not seen that movie yet. That is hilarious. Oh my god. Of course. Of course.
So
Amazing.
you know,
Amazing.
the number of things that people can do is infinite. I almost I laugh, and it makes me sad at the same time. It's like when people go, well, what can we do? It's like, well, what can you think of?
Yeah.
Okay. But everybody is where they are. They're living their life the way they choose to. And so if any of this is, if you get a chance to look it over, if anybody who's watching this gets a chance to look it over, the way that thing is structured, there's 10 fundamental health freedom rights, along with the basic one, which just because somebody says it's an emergency doesn't give them magic authority to trample your unalienable rights.
And
Okay.
ever
And
since, not just that, every year, every presidential election cycle, there's a war just before the election because they know that artificially hikes the
yep,
presidential approval ratings. This
yep,
is actually they're spilling blood for, you know, to play games, power
yep,
games. This is not
yep,
cool, and they're spilling blood actually now, right, of our children and of this whole, our own health. They will take no prisoners. They will spare no life to achieve power, and we have to keep them in check. And thank God
and
for soldiers
and
like yourself, man.
and keeping their power in check starts with however many Americans there are, 300 and some odd million
I'm
people.
with you, man. You know that.
when
I'm with
when
you.
when each person steps into their power and stiffens their spine, we're all better because of it. Now, we could disagree on, this, that, or the other policy or detail or whatever. We probably don't, but you're going to disagree with somebody, okay? But where in the world did it say that our elected officials
So wait a
are
minute.
our bosses?
Let's be real, James. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real. The thing is that a lot of the conversation around this topic is kind of like the air is sucked out of the room by the Jimmy Dores, the Joe Rogans. It's not even necessarily 100% their fault, right? Yeah, but the media decides to make them into a person that's easily a brand that we know and understand, right? Easy to digest versus, right, listening to locals or people like yourself who have good authority, right? Yeah, from your international work, or
Mhm.
focusing on how do we really recapture, right? Yeah, to inform people. Um, I think
One
that,
one
right, you said that we have to change too. Part of that is also we have to get
yeah,
society more in
step
tune with the truth. How do we do that?
step number one.
Yeah.
I don't try to convince anybody of anything. Step number one is identifying allies and organizing the people who are willing to work. That is
Okay,
step number one.
but hasn't the left
Because
been successful with their like woke ideology, whatever, blah? People
very
say
much
whatever, as in terms of like changing the educational system to really, match their, to create a new generation, and they've
it's
impacted,
still,
right? Yeah, society.
regardless of what topic you want to talk about, okay?
Okay.
It, talk about education and kids. If if a We just had a conversation about a friend's
But a lot of people
son.
say ACT is one of the first things to do is to educate people about the problem. But you're saying you don't know.
Well,
Okay, this is very interesting. It's
you
for me,
want to
it's a divergence. Go ahead.
you want to make um yeah you want to make information available,
Mm.
okay? But the point is, if somebody doesn't want to learn, if their head is a brick wall, okay, you can spend all your day trying to convince that blockhead and get nowhere. And so what happens is people like, oh, I got to convince my parents, or I got to convince my, neighbor or my cousin or my boss or this politician or that. When if what you did first was just be very clear on who you are and what you want, and be a, health freedom bill of rights. It's a personal statement.
Yeah, but the
If you
experts and this other guy and the
No,
the
no, 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 no.
doctor says this. So
Here's the
how do you?
thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. One out of 200 people, if you're lucky, will look. If you walked into a room and there was 200 people there, and you're trying to find one person to work with, right? Would you just go up to the first person and go, "I'm going to convince you to work with me"? Or would you say something like, "Okay, hey, I'm working on this. If anybody's interested, come on over here,"
I think you know which one I
right?
am.
Step step well, but if you weren't interested in it, you wouldn't come. And so what people do is they get fixated on trying to convince the person that they want to convince, and they miss so much opportunity to work with people who are probably even more convinced than you are. And so I put it out there, and the people who want to work, we get better organized, we get better informed. And then what you have is, if you walk into a room and you have a posse, if you walk into a room and you've got 100 people who are all on board, and there's 5 or 6 people who don't know what's going, they want to be part of that team, right? So trying to have one person convince 100 versus have 100 who are together, and that one person sees that and they go, I'm missing out. It's a psychological thing. When one person is trying to convince many, pretty hard. When one person has found many that don't need convincing, and they bump into one person at a time, that one person is overwhelmed. And if they don't want to, no big deal. You got to get your shit together first. You got to get your team, your ideas, your concept. You got to be organized. You got to have a goal. You got to know what it is you want. And many people who are doing a lot of crazy things, they've figured this out. They've done that. They've been organized and slow. I mean, you go back to what they're doing at the WHO. They're trying to put together a framework convention for pandemic prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. They just keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating. Well, in 1992, they got all the nations to sign on to a framework convention for climate change. Okay, they took the long view. That was 27, 28. They've had 27 or 28 conferences of the parties, right? So what they're trying to set up is not something that's necessarily going to hit us in the face immediately. They're trying to set up a structure that will put somebody else in charge of making protocols with us not having anything to say about it, going off into the future. And so not to beat it into submission, and I'm going to go have lunch and I'll let you go. Thanks for letting me be here. I work with the willing. I work with the people who see it. They might not know all the details. I can help with that. But it's like, where do you want to be? There are a lot of people who want very similar things to what you and I want. Okay. But they all feel that they're the only ones. I can't tell you how many phone calls I get. Oh, there's nobody. No, there's millions of people. What they've successfully done over the last 3 to 4 years is make everybody think that they're the only ones who think what they're thinking. Now, there's a lot of people who, will disagree with many of these things, but there are a large number of people who are just, many of them may be waiting for a savior. Okay. But there are many people who just need to get better connected. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Appreciate it, man. Really appreciate your insight. I look up to you a lot, and you gave me a lot to think about for my own self. Yeah. Look forward to having more conversations with you, as I think things are going to be turning up for in different ways over here. Yeah.
I'm optimistic for the future. Nobody said it was going to be easy. Okay. But when you look at the horror show that, they're trying to lock us down into this digital prison hellscape, I haven't spoken to anybody who's looked at the information that I'm presenting about the WHO and said, oh, yeah, I think it's a great idea. Somebody in Geneva should tell me how many holes I got to punch in my body. No, nobody says that, right? Do they have the strength to push back against it? Well, the concept, the idea of mob mentality. When you're all alone and the mob is against you, scary, right? But if you have allies, there's power, and it's not about an angry mob, forcing anything on anybody. It's just totally peaceful, totally loving. It's just, what is it you want? If you don't know what you want, somebody else is going to come along and put you into their program.
It's true.
And so, I know what I want, and I think you know what you want.
That's good.
If somebody else wants something close to the same, let's get together and work on it.
All right. Thanks a lot, James.
Thank you.
Well
Take
done,
care,
man.
man. Good to see you.
Thank
Bye.
you.